Finding hope. Hope. If there is one predominant outcome of your trainings and experiences, it is that one is left with a hope that may not have existed before. For whatever reason, belief systems tend to be subjective and may be shaken by global or personal events, yet your trainings offer a distinct opportunity to add actual experience to faith or belief, yielding an outcome that may be rationalized but not denied. For me, that resulting and abiding outcome equals hope. First, a little background. I am a licensed professional therapist in the state of Oklahoma, and I have spent 25 years working with chronic schizophrenia patients in an inpatient setting. I designed the behavioral system and had oversight of the program. Thus, as a behaviorist and therapist, you might say that structure was my guiding principle. What follows below is the universe's non-too subtle method of saying, Mr. Wilson, your structure is microscopically small, and the comfort and security that you have experienced within that structure is not where it begins or ends. Approximately 5 years ago, I found myself in desperate need of quite a few continuing education hours to renew my license as a professional therapist. Like many others, I typically wait until the last minute and begin seeking them in a panic. I do not recall how I found out about the seminar, however, I saw it as an opportunity to get the hours that I needed and didn't think much about the content. My wife and I arrived at the crossing in Austin, and the next morning, I joined many others in the first session. I was, needless to say, quickly convinced that I was in the room with a bunch of nuts when people began to identify themselves as angel therapists, Reiki masters, and so forth, terms of which I had never heard. I had the distinct feeling that I was in the wrong place. Raised in a quite strict, conservative Southern Baptist environment and subsequently having strayed from organized religion, I had not filled that slot with anything else. The result of this religion void was that I considered myself moral, black and white, and strongly attached to God on a personal rather than organizational level. In other words, I had God well defined and in a box that I created for Him, and I was happy as long as He stayed within my parameters. The first hour of the seminar had me ready to run out the door and not look back. However, at the break I told my wife of my misgivings and she said, "Look, you need the hours. You are already here, you have paid for the week, and you might as well stick it out." Reluctantly, I agreed. Shortly thereafter, Dr. Weiss did a group regression. I cannot emphasize enough that I closed my eyes with trepidation and extreme disbelief and caution. I would have bet the farm that my resistance would have prevented any hypnotic state. If I were ever wrong in my life about anything, this was the hands-down winner of that category. I immediately found myself in a seashore village as a 10-year-old boy. The homes had thatched roofs, with a dirt and rock path winding between them. There were geese and dogs here and there running loose, the grass was green as green can be, and I was running and playing along the path. There were others in the village, I knew them but paid them no mind. I rounded the corner of one of the houses, and from up the hill behind me I heard a strong male voice call what I knew to be my name, Jo, or Johar. I stopped, he called again, and I went running to what I knew was my father. He was at a home near the top of the path, working on a large grinding stone that appeared to be a wheel. He was sharpening axes and swords, and I knew this was his job. It was clear that this was a Norse village. In the next scene I was 18 years old, and my father and I, along with many other Norsemen, were in a ship, sailing to a foreign shore for the purpose of attack and plunder. I stood in front of my father and said, without looking back at him, "I don't know what to do." He responded, "You will know when you get there." In my present life, I had seen pictures before of know when you get there. In my present life, I had seen pictures before of Norsemen and what they wore. However, it was while on this ship that I had the realization of what each piece of clothing was for. For the first time, I recognized that the arm bracelet was actually for defense against weaponry. Then we were back in our own village, and my father was lying on a stiff-looking bed. He was dying from a wound that he had received while we were in battle, as I kneeled by his side. Later, I had returned from another battle, and I lay dying, just as my father had. My own young son was kneeling by my side, just as I had knelt by my father. There, in response to, "What have you learned?" I remember thinking, we have not learned anything. Here we are, generation after generation, still fighting and dying, and my son will do the same. At this point, we were brought out of the hypnotic state. I was, for lack of a better phrase, freaked out. In the course of probably 15 minutes, my world was turned upside down and inside out. Doubt and trepidation turned to a feeling of bewilderment in that I had no category or place to put this, nor any means of denying it, digesting it, or hiding it, any of which I would have gladly done. While Dr. Weiss did not press for whether or not the experiences were real, there was no question in my mind that they were and that my current life and future had been altered. All of a sudden, I was far more concerned about my own mental health than that of the angel therapy folks or anyone else. Oddly enough, while this shook me to the core, it did not shake my belief in God. Rather, it began an ongoing process of taking God out of myself and my childhood created box and recognizing what eternity really meant. I left at the lunch break, and my wife could tell that something was wrong with me. In a period of 3 hours, I went from a black and white thinker to basically a man without certainty of anything. My belief system and limitations thereof had been shattered. There was no question that what I experienced had been true. My hypnotic state was technicolor and as real as my hands are to me now. My prior knowledge of Norse life did not hold a candle to what I knew in the experience. My name was pronounced Johar, and I knew that it was my name. After returning home from the training, I looked for it on the internet and found it on a site of ancient Norse names, as I knew it would be. The following day found me between two worlds, and I went into the seminar thinking, what next, almost as if I was someone sentenced to be thoroughly kicked and resigned to it. Sure enough, the next regression was more bizarre than the first. I went on to have a cosmic experience in which I became part of human evolution, a dream that allowed me to connect to the entire universe. And a shared experience with a complete stranger in which I could see the details of his regression. I have worked for 25 years with medically fragile children and chronic schizophrenics, and your seminar allowed me some sense of peace as to the outcomes that many of these unfortunate folks experience. Little else has made sense. I came to your training seeking continuing education credits, and I left with proof of universal consciousness. Most of all, I came away with a hope that previously was sadly lacking. It is my belief that if others could experience that hope, their world and personal view would improve, as did mine. Raymond Wilson, I am grateful to whatever universal forces conspired to land Raymond in our 5-day course. He is such a gift, a big-hearted, down-to-earth man who is doing truly difficult and delicate professional work. He came for the continuing education credits and left having earned Transform Your Life credits. He also transformed our entire group. Even though Raymond's past life regression was joyless and taught the futility of violence and war, he nevertheless came away with a sense of hope. With each subsequent experience during the week, his hope increased. Finally, he had encountered the answer to the purpose of his life in the awareness that an expanded vision of God and eternity actually existed. Life is not just a meaningless and continuous struggle to survive. As he will continue to describe in stories throughout this book, in only 1 week Raymond felt connected to the stream of existence, from the very beginnings of life on Earth, through Viking and other incarnations, into the entire cosmos and all of eternity. He saw and felt himself a part of the universal evolution and the indescribable wisdom that guides the whole process. He no longer felt separated or alienated. Many people come to my workshops with an enthusiastic wish to remember a past life. They have read the books, they recognize the healing power of regressions, and they know that miracles happen. During these workshops, I often make the point that the people who have been dragged there by their significant others or well-meaning friends, who have no expectations or even interest in having a past life regression, are often the very people who have the most vivid and compelling ones. Raymond, who certainly had his doubts about the nature of this work, is a perfect example. He came only for the professional credits. In fact, were it not for the gentle convincing of his wife, he would have left the seminar entirely. Yet he had numerous powerful and deeply spiritual experiences. Why does this occur? Our own expectations and desire to relive a past life can often get in our way. We may want it so much that we try to force the process and, paradoxically, we block it. However, with practice we can overcome any such obstacles. It is important to practice without any frustration and without any attachment to the outcome of a particular session. Don't say, I have to have a regression, for that will only prevent it from happening. There is no need to put this kind of pressure on yourself. Just accept whatever comes to your mind, whether you are meditating, listening to a hypnosis CD, participating in a group regression, or working one-on-one with a therapist. There is a process and a wisdom at work. As you have already read, what you call this process, whether the Tao, or the way, or destiny, or any other name, does not matter. What does matter is that you trust it to guide you to wherever it is that you need to go. Take your time and be patient. You may not immediately remember a past life but instead have a mediumistic experience, perhaps getting a message from the other side. You may have a physical healing, a remission of a troubling symptom. Every time that you practice, you are learning how to relax and how to let go of stress. You're helping your immune system and becoming healthier. These are extremely therapeutic benefits for your mind and body, and they are valuable in their own right. The more that you practice without becoming frustrated, the deeper and deeper you will go. It may take weeks or months, but the gains are worth it. It took me 3 months until I could remember a past life. One of my patients tried for 8 years before ever successfully regressing, but once she did, the results were incredibly profound. She has since told me that every minute that led up to those ancient memories was worth it. If your past life recall brings you healing or spiritual growth or a sense of oneness and peace, then wouldn't 8 years, or even 8 lifetimes, be time well spent? I have had many patients or workshop participants who, like the authors in this section, were able to achieve emotional healing simply by remembering their past lives. Their stories have stayed with me long after their regressions ended, and I have interspersed some of them throughout this chapter. One such person was Yumiko, in this life a Japanese-American physician, who remembered a past life as an impoverished young girl in London, England, several centuries ago. In the past lifetime, she had been the oldest child of 6, and by the age of 10 she was working very hard within the family. With no father present in her life and a mother who was often away at work, Yumiko had to raise her siblings, and as just a little girl she was taking care of many other young children and babies. She could recall her one dress and how it smelled because she couldn't wash it. She could see the people urinating in the street, and, especially, she remembered not having any soap. She had to wash with only water, but without soap, clothes could never be truly clean once worn. She was forced to become a servant in a bigger, much grander house. This family had soap. Eventually, because she was treated so poorly by the madam, she ran away. Not long afterward, she died at a young age of hunger, starvation, and illness, and she floated above and left the past life memories. Yumiko's next memory was of her childhood in her present life, in which she was the oldest of 3 children. She recalled an incident in which her brother's nappy, or diaper, had fallen off, which she then had to wash. But this time, she had soap. Her thought was this was a piece of cake. Indeed, she was smiling as she relived this moment and thought of all the things that she was able to do as a child, reading, drawing, that she could never do as a child in her past life due to her extreme poverty. While still in the hypnotic state, she explained to the group that she had learned to be happy about the small things, like a bar of soap. As she told us all, be grateful for and appreciate what you have, not what you don't have. Yumiko's story teaches us that we should not take anything for granted and that we should recognize the blessings that we do have, no matter how small they may be. If we need little but appreciate everything, we will be much happier. As Lao Tzu said over 2000 years ago, he who knows he has enough is rich. After remembering 2 prior lifetimes in which she died alone, Tom could now, in her present life, fully appreciate the blessing of being surrounded by loving soulmate. This is a part of Zindagi Ki Roshni consultancy. It has been established for those who have lost someone and for those who are very sad in their life. About 100 PDF books and 20 short audio books of this topic will be sent to those who join it. This data will be sent to their email or WhatsApp. If you want to join this organization, then please send WhatsApp message to this number.